We're moving from a hierarchical, a structural vision of Christianity to one that is more dialogical. So this is the era of partnering. Our exclusivities of the past are out of date. And so we have to help one another and help one another in every way we can, given our talents, to bring into society, whichever society we're in around the world, an awakening of the great love of God for each human being and his desire to enter into a personal relationship with each of us.
Well, it's a great delight to be here in Snowmass for this meeting of the Contemplative Exchange with the representatives of young contemplative teachers and scholars from our different organizations and communities. And so far I've been very inspired by the quality, the depth and the energy of their contributions. I think what I really hope to come out of this will be friendships, relationships, not an organization as such, but of course, but a network which will lead to creative initiatives and creative new ventures for the good of the contemplative church that we all eager for, and also to be able to share our Christian contemplative wisdom with a secular world that is so much in need of it.
As close as I think we feel to one another, we're also aware that we each live in our own little tribes in different parts of, in this case, this country and internationally. And it's just delightful to come together in a way and in a setting that feels both so safe and yet so free. The amount of people I've met here who are just very creative, in-depth thinkers is delightful. So I think it sets us all free to think maybe our best thoughts are thoughts that are not just at the mythic membership level, at that tribal level, but somehow at what's this bigger contemplative picture that we're all so deeply interested in.
These are people from 6 or 7 countries, and it's amazing how everyone who agreed to be here 6 months ago are here. We asked them to exchange papers with each other about some area that thought was important or valuable, that they care about and are working on in the arena of contemplative understanding or practice or context, the different places they're bringing contemplative awareness to. This is an arena, contemplative awareness, that is something that makes a huge difference if it can undergird whatever the institution or group is in terms of having a transcendent grounding for their what they're doing, and something that's larger than their egos and larger than their minds even.
Contemplation plays a vital role in the future of our planet. One of the main gifts of the contemplative tradition is unmasking the unconscious And it's the material in our unconscious that leads to so much of the separation and destruction of our planet. So I really believe for the survival of our species, for the survival of the planet that we inhabit, we must prioritize contemplative practice in our world and find ways in which we can make contemplative practice even more accessible than it is today.
Well, I think it can make a great difference, particularly at this point in our world. There's so much uncertainty and fear and hatred that is emerging and becoming more and more visible and really breaking community. And so I think that the gift of the contemplative path is its ability to stand and sit in silence together and to witness in that way that there's another way of being together will continue to be so vital.
For the world, Christian contemplation has so many effects. You have cosmic effects, which would be like every time a single person begins to do contemplative practice, as they mature in their practice, that almost creates like a well of gravity that other people vicariously participate in. So, one person who sits in meditation or contemplative prayer has a cosmic effect not only on the people around them, but making it easier for everyone else in the world to enter into the contemplative journey, but perhaps on a subtle level. The other place for the world is that some of the gifts of contemplation, just in a very manifest, very initial way, you develop patience and compassion, and you become more human, and you end up developing all these fruits of the Spirit because you're intentionally maturing as a human being.
I think there's a sense of disconnection that many people experience, both from themselves, from their bodies, from the body of the world, the environment, and from other people, even though we're so superficially networked, but there's lacking that deep connectedness and communion. And I think we can't heal those disconnections until we begin to engage them at the level of our own heart and our relationship with God. So that's the beginning of it. I think this beginning process of healing or making peace with ourselves, which then flows out in all kinds of different ways to our relationship with the world.
There's a silent heart of God that is radiating within every aspect of creation, every person. And I think the role of contemplation is to offer a way for whatever activity we have, whether it's a simple life, whether it's a more monastic style life, or whether it's a very active life in the worlds of business or of politics or whatever field one's in, that the opportunity to be grounded in that love and to let things to flow from that. And I believe that's the way forward for a peaceful humanity and a grounded and secure future for humanity. Without that, our best efforts at finding happiness seem to just kind of lead us in spinning circles. And with that, it seems everything else becomes possible. So it's not contemplation in juxtaposition to the activities of the world, but contemplation is sort of the hidden yeast which brings the fruit of love into all realms. So I think that's the role that we have to offer.
So while we were here, one of the questions that was asked was, would we argue that the center of the Christian church, the center of the Christian movement, of Christian spirituality and practice, would we argue that contemplation is at the heart of that? I actually would. I would actually argue that it is very much at the heart of it. And what I understand that to mean is that being aware of what we yearn for and what we desire most deeply, being dedicated to a practice, not staying just on the level of doctrinal definitions, but looking underneath that, looking to the felt experience, looking to the ways that practices, the adage, praying shapes believing, is very true. It does shape what we believe, and it shapes how we live. And in that sense, I think contemplation is absolutely essential. Contemplative practices are absolutely essential to help open our heart, make us more malleable, less rigid in how we approach life and how we approach people from different backgrounds, and open us up to a greater awareness of the expansiveness of God and the depth of God, both of those directions growing at the same time.
I think what we have here common from all different perspectives of contemplation methods is this concern and this feeling of necessity to do something with our world. And I mean, this is not only the concrete steps or action, but it's a whole new paradigm which came from the heart, from this oneness with God, and this understanding that we have to care for everyone and also be God's present in this world, which is, we know it is in trouble.
We are living in a very fractured time where everywhere we look, my context is the United States, we are polarized and fractured almost beyond belief. And I really think it's only the contemplative mind that gives us the heart to hold beyond polarization and to approach fractured situations, fractured people, and the fractures and polarizations even in our inner lives with love and compassion. And I truly believe that is that allowing love's force to be a part of us, God's love, is the only hope for the world.
So as I think about the future of contemplative Christianity, it's really critical that we recognize how the contemplative landscape for Christianity in the West has been dominated by really upper middle class white individuals. And it's become just incredibly clear this week as we've gathered that we must make room for all people, that we are very limited in our perspective and our understanding of the contemplative tradition without including people of color, people from other socioeconomic statuses and their experience. So this will be very important as we consider how to progress and how to advance the movement of contemplative Christianity. Additionally, I think it's going to be even more important to, or equally as important to, really give time to studying the science behind Christian contemplation, and uncovering the various levels of consciousness that we experience in our meditation practice, and the implications of that on our everyday life and how we interact with the world around us.
I think about the future of the contemplative tradition within the broader Christian church. The first thing that comes to mind is my own context. I'm a parish priest, so I'm embedded within a community of people from all different backgrounds and walks of life. So many of our conversations here over these 4 days have been around looking at how to nurture charisms and vocations in everyone's life who we meet, in our families, in our personal lives, in the lives of all the people in our parishes, those who we work with, all the ones from so many different backgrounds. I think the unifying thing for me when it comes to the contemplative tradition, to the lineage that we all share, is best understood by what the ancients termed watchfulness. It's the degree to which we can become more aware of God's presence in our lives. There's a misconception, I think, when it comes to what contemplation is, that it's just being quiet or a certain concept of silence. And that's important. It's important to be quiet. But it's not just about the absence of noise. It's about learning to cultivate, learning to grow, and have a deeper and a growing awareness of God's presence within you and all around you, no matter what circumstances you find yourself in. So I'm very hopeful after spending 4 days with all of us from different parts of the world, from different parts of life, from all different jobs, different vocations, different family structures. You see these deep themes running underneath all of those variations of life. That gives me a lot of hope that people are searching and yearning for that deeper felt presence of God in their life.
So when I think about the future of Christianity, and particularly the role of the contemplative movement in it, what I see moving forward as essential is that a contemplative Christianity is experiential. That is, it's birthed from an encounter in silence with the God of love. And then theology and church structure and practice can emerge out of that experience of love. So the experience of the indwelling Christ, who is love, is primary. And in a similar way, I see in a group like this, the bonds between one another emerge out of this shared experience of love that flows into our relationships. So it's quite effortless. Where I see where a contemplative base is lacking often, there are many efforts and a lot of straining to connect and to build relationships. But what the contemplative movement offers is a place to ground first in love, and then allow the relationships to flow forth from that love. So that is something I see as essential to the future of the church, and I think is also something that's being demanded more and more by the generations. The younger generations are coming forward. They don't have that much of an interest in the abstract belief system, but that experience of love is something that I think many are seeking, and that this movement can help to offer to the church and to the world.
I think that the biggest thing that I've come away with is this sense of connection, people wanting a deep connection, both to God and to others who are on this contemplative path. So I think I think the connection is beyond the words. So it's a way of hearing someone's spirit and hearing God's spirit in the person, and that means being together and loving the experience of being together. And I think that's the future of contemplative Christianity.
So in the future, at least from the context of this gathering, there was a conversation about formation, and particularly two kinds of formation: infusion formation and also immersion formation. Infusion formation being a kind of contemplative practice that you're infusing in your life. Someone who has already a structured life. They might have a family, a job that they're not interested in leaving, and a professional career. And so formation for folks who are going to stay in that life, stay in that pattern of life. The immersion came out because many folks were interested in doing a kind of intensive immersion training so that they could go very deeply and perhaps expediently through some of the thresholds of the contemplative journey in a stable environment where they would be able to leave whatever life they had previous and go right into the immersion practice. The immersion practice would be something like a 40-day intensive training retreat, or 90-day intensive, or 1 year, or 3 years. And without a commitment to a religious order or anything like this, but just a commitment to the training itself. Those two things came out pretty strongly. Of course, both of them were needed, and the infusion style practice, there's a good traction in the different contemplative traditions in Western Christianity for these things now. And that the immersion style was something that we were really looking to develop in the next 5, 10, 120 years.
When I think about contemplative Christianity, one of the things that's central to that is the idea of practice, and a serious spiritual practice, particularly a prayer practice and the practice of silent prayer, meditation. And I think what's distinctive about that is that then our faith comes sourced in the experience that happens in and through that practice, rather than just in statements of belief or creedal statements. And it's a faith that is changing us through the practice all the time. And then we come to understand more deeply in our own experience what this language of transformation means, the language of reconciliation, of healing, and that makes a more living, and an actively active thing that's happening in us that we bring to the world.
Well, the first idea is that I'm hearing a lot of hope for the future, but I am also hearing that people don't know what the future of contemplative Christianity is, that somehow it has to do with the continuing lineage of these organizations, but that it is truly going to be in the hands of the next generation of contemplative practitioners and teachers to figure out together what the future is and to discern the Spirit's work. So I think part of this gathering has been to attend our hearts to what the Spirit might be doing. And I don't think we know yet. And I think that is beautiful, actually.
If I could highlight some ideas for future Christianity, it will be definitely what we shared here or what we experience here. That means the awareness for the inner core, which is in silence, and all these things which grew up from this experience with our Creator. So definitely friendship, understanding, cooperation, respect. Yeah.